Hey everybody, it's Martial Secrets time. I'm Chris Wilder, and I'm still at the animal barbecue. I know it seems like it's never going to end, but the thing is that there are so many fantastic martial artists that are coming through here, and this is the 10th anniversary of this. You just can't believe the depth of these folks that are here. And speaking of depth, and he'll deny depth, but I've got Peyton Quinn here with us. Peyton, how are you today?
Just fine. Thank you for having me.
I have absolutely been a fan of your work. No question about it. Tell everybody that may not be familiar with what your work is, where you're located, and what you're doing. And I'm going to jump in and add some color on some of this stuff because there's some pretty good stuff here. But the name of your business and what you're teaching.
Rocky Mountain Combat Applications Training, and we're in Lake George, Colorado. People do come from all over the world to take the course, too.
Yeah.
Basically, when I was a bouncer many years ago, after the earth cooled and the dinosaurs came, I came to some realizations about martial arts, which I was very well trained in at that time.
Now, you had started in judo?
My first black belt was in judo.
Yeah.
Then wado, karate, and then...
See, I'm judo and goju-ryu. So,
goju-ryu.
Yeah, so here you go. We got the same stuff, yeah.
And then later, the aikido. But I saw that technique wasn't really the answer, at least not the whole answer. That most people's real problem in an attack wasn't simply a matter of knowing tricks or techniques. It was dealing with the adrenal stress reaction and denial. I also recognized and identified as a bouncer the modus operandi of the human predators, the bullies, the people who attack people. They rarely attack someone randomly. Sometimes they do, but most of the time they will conduct an interview of the potential victim in order to see his safety, that he's safe to punch out, that I'm not going to screw with the wrong guy.
Right.
So it may start just like this. He'll say, "Hey, what the hell are you looking at?"
I'm not looking at anything.
Right.
Yeah.
You saying I ain't anything?
Yeah.
You see?
Away we go.
Away we go, see? The way you respond to the initial interview will determine whether he will complete his program and attack you. Most fights are absolutely avoidable if you do not deny that you're being preened or interviewed or cultivated for an assault, a punch-out. If you're not in denial. Now, an example of denial would be dividing your mind. What the hell is this guy doing? I never met this guy before in my life. What the hell? This can't be real.
This is not rational to me.
Yeah, this isn't rational. Of course it isn't. So you can't try to impress any rationality on irrational, aggressive human predator behavior. You simply must recognize it for what it is.
Okay, let me interject something here. I want you to say that again, Peyton. You can't rationalize.
You can't impress a rational reason for irrational behavior. That is, the predator, the human predator, what he is doing is not rational. It doesn't even serve his interests.
Let me ask you this question. Is there evil in the world?
Hell yes.
Okay. There are people that don't believe that there is. And, I've met them, you've met them.
Well, read up about the Nazis, World War II. They gassed 6 million people in factories of death, like Dachau.
And if
that's not evil, what the hell is?
Yeah. Well, so let's divide then. I've got an evil predator and a resource predator. Is there another predator?
Let me pull it together a little bit.
Please.
The predator, the human predator, is motivated primarily by a sense of personal failure and worthlessness, which causes him a sense of pain. Pain causes cognitive dissonance. The difference between what he thinks he deserves, what he ought to get, and what other people seem to be getting instead of him.
Are we talking about like the Green River Killer, the Ted Bundys of the world?
No, they are a fraction of 1%. Those are the true psychopaths.
Okay.
I'm not talking about them. You have to handle them the same way, frankly, but you're not likely to run into them because people who get their orders or directions from God, who speaks to them through their dog, are a fraction of 1%.
Son of Sam.
Yeah. But there's plenty of people out there who their old man beat them up. They became a bully in the elementary school playground, and then later they bullied people in high school, and their whole self-identity in self-worth is predicated on the idea that I can physically intimidate people, and I do, and that's who I am.
Well, it's become a method, and it works for them. Why would they forsake that?
Well, a good number of them will grow out of it, but I'll say this, and I've interviewed a lot of people in prisons around the country. If a person is a bully long enough and is successful enough long enough, he ends up in prison. That's all there is to it. We could digress and talk about how things operate in prisons and how now
please do.
Now you've got an ocean of bullies.
Yeah, you got an ocean of bullies.
Okay, here's something important to understand about some violent convicts. I will always, when I'm interviewing people in a prison, I will find out what prisoner has been killed recently in the prison and why. That's not a gang retaliation thing, a personal killing. Okay. Well, very often it's to encapsulate one. The guy lends the guy a cigarette, he doesn't bring it back. The guy who lent him the cigarette stabs him to death or beats him with a bludgeon. Now, did he kill the guy over failure over the cigarette? No. He didn't kill the guy over failing to repay the cigarette. He killed the guy because he knew, and being a human predator himself, if he did not retaliate for the cigarette not being repaid, then everybody would see him and their eyes would turn to him. Hey, maybe we can get over on him. Maybe he's soft.
Got to be hard. Got to be hard.
Right. Okay, now here's what happens. Now the guy's in prison 4 or 5 years living in this environment.
Sure.
The result is he's instrumentally conditioned to overreact to the slightest real or imagined hint of disrespect. So you may be, a guy may say something to you, and you're just like, oh, get the fuck out of here, man. Because whatever. Well, if you say that to the wrong guy, he'll stab you to death. He has to. He's conditioned to do that. Give you an example. I speak Spanish reasonably well. I was in a Western clothing store looking for a denim jacket, and there was a Hispanic man and woman, and they were talking. I could understand what they were saying perfectly well, and so I moved away just out of courtesy. Then later, the Hispanic man raised a pair of boots and said, in perfect English, "How much are these boots? There's no tag on them." The kid behind the counter, teenage kid behind the counter, just did not look at him, did not make eye contact, but raised his hand, waved, and said, "Hold on, man, I'll be with you in a minute." I looked at the Hispanic man, I saw like a bolt of electricity go through his body. I knew in that instant that man had been in prison, and that he was like the Frankenstein monster going to attack this kid and beat him to death.
Because he'd been disrespected?
Yes. Because he's conditioned to respond with direct, disproportionate violence to anyone disrespecting them, because that is a survival instinct now. If I don't do it, the others will get me.
Direct, disproportional violence.
Yeah.
That means, in other words, I'm going to go from DEFCON 1 to DEFCON 4 now. There's no double dog dare you.
If he insults me, I'm going to spill his blood.
Mm-hmm.
I may not have to kill him, depends. I'll give you another example. Guy goes into the McDonald's, gets his egg, whatever. He looks at the eggs in the tray, and he says, "Hey, these eggs are watery. I want them redone." The kid behind the counter says, "You get them the way you get them, man." See, that's disrespecting him. He jumped across the corner, beat the guy's head against the thing, then tried to stick his head into the boiling oil of French fry boiler. All right. My point
is... That is disproportional.
Yeah. My point is this. It doesn't cost anything to be courteous. It does, be nice. That's the one speech I wrote that got into the movie, the late Patrick Swayze.
Oh, we were talking about Roadhouse, baby. That's
yeah.
Now, wait a minute. Now, wait a minute. Now, I want to back this up because, my friend, I have seen that steaming pile probably 16 times. That is like, to me, that is like going to the fair and getting a deep fried Snickers bar. I know I'm not supposed to,
right?
And I know it's bad for me, but oh, it's delicious. So you're telling me you were involved in Roadhouse?
Well, when I got a call from a guy who said, this is years and years ago, I got a call from a guy and he said, I'm making a film about a bouncer, and I saw you had a book, A Bouncer's Guide. And so he interviewed me for about 2 hours on the phone.
And you dropped that line on him.
I said, yeah. And the main problem is you had to get I was the lead cooler, I was a bouncer. You had to get your crew squared away. Get the people who are troublemakers on your bouncer crew.
We've seen this scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And explain to them what the job really was. And that's where the be nice thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really, I mean, another thing, if a guy's trying to intimidate you and you are not, okay, there are only 3 ways to respond to direct stand-up in-your-face aggression.
Yeah.
One is an obvious sign of fear.
Yeah.
And wrapped up with that would be denial. The other is counter-aggression. No, he woofs on you, you try to out-woof him. He says, what the fuck are you looking at? And you say, I'd say about 2 pounds of shit in a 1 pound bag. That's trying to out-woof the woofer. That's aggressive.
Yeah.
But these two, being afraid or being aggressive and angry, they are not really choices. Those are not choices your rational mind made.
No, you're down in a different level of your brain.
Exactly. These are knee-jerk responses. The only real choice you can make is to be assertive. So if you show fear, that rings the dinner bell. Lunch is served. The predator sees he's got the victim that he can handle. If you're aggressive, counter-aggressive, sometimes the bully might back down. But also sometimes he may attack immediately because you've disrespected him.
Sure.
But if you're assertive, he sees a couple of things here right away. He sees you're not in fear. He sees he's not even been able to control your mind to make you angry. He sees he's not been able to control your mind. And that's what he was trying to do in the first place with, what the fuck are you looking at, man? You see what I mean?
Sure, sure.
But you come back and say, I wasn't looking at you, sir. Let's get along. And you're looking at him right now when you say that. Okay?
I've used kind of a deflection technique before. I've spoken about it before here. But I'll just throw it out here. Real simple instance. I'm looking at, and one of the things is if somebody's sporting ink, I'm reading the ink. You know,
he means tattoos, of course.
Yeah. If somebody
prison ink, that's different.
Well, that's what I'm saying is that if somebody's sporting, some ink, I'm looking at it because that's going to tell me whether they've been in or not, and it's going to give me a different kind of reaction. Well, this guy's being really rude to a waitress. I mean, just over the top rude, and he's pulled it off about the 3rd time, and I'm kind of had enough because I think it's a good thing to be pleasant to people, and foolishly I say to him, that's a pretty tough guy, dressing down a waitress. Okay, well, now I've thrown it. He's got to pick it up.
Right.
So he leans back, and he just kind of leans back in his chair, and he looks at me, and he says, you want to find out just how tough? And at this point, I realized that I made a mistake because I'm not going to educate this guy.
No.
There's nothing. And I look up at the screen, and I go, how about those Vikings or something like that? And he goes, that's what I thought. And he leans forward, and we're done.
Right, you're done, yes.
Yeah, we're done.
Well, here's another thing about being assertive. Here are the basic rules of dealing with the directly aggressive people. Do not insult them. Do not challenge them or accept their challenge. Show no fear.
I made a lateral move is what I did.
But the important one that a lot of people miss is give them the most honorable exit possible. He was giving you the honorable exit.
Yeah.
You see? That we don't have to go any further. So, but
I also didn't say no, and I didn't say yes. I made a lateral movement.
Right, and that, yes, he said, well, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
And I left it.
But see, in general, I don't get involved in other people's conflicts.
No, and I foolishly should have just left it alone, but I was stupid.
It has to be something very extreme.
Yeah.
If he grabbed the waitress or something like that and started whacking her, with
that
would be different.
Yeah, but
it has to pretty much go that far.
It wasn't a bright move on my part.
If 2 people are fighting out in the parking lot, I'm going to watch.
Yeah, please. It's a free lesson.
Yeah. You don't get involved. And here's another thing as a bouncer. Say, I saw a guy might have some woman leaned over the counter, hitting her with his fist. Well, I'd grab his fist and try, and,
Yeah.
I'd be more ruder with him. But I quickly learned never to do that until I had my second guy to restrain the woman he was beating up on.
Because she's coming.
Because she's as likely to pull out a knife or gun and stab you in the back while you're dealing with the guy who was beating on her.
You know, I'll tell you, and I've spoken about this before too, but my old karate instructor we were walking out of a party. I was behind him a good 20 minutes, but he went home earlier, and he hears this woman screaming, and he sees this purse flying up between two cars, coming up, coming down, woman screaming. He runs up there, and it's the guy. He's got the purse, and he's beating on her.
Yeah.
And the guy looks at him. He says, "You want some of this? You know, you mother." Yeah. And my instructor looked at him, and he played like an idiot. He goes, "What? What?" You know, and the guy goes, "This, you want some of this?" He's like, what? You
right.
know, and the woman stood up, it diffused, he went away. I said, and I was a young man at the time, and I said, I would have to beat that dude down.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, "No." He goes, "I'm not going to teach him a lesson. That's a dance that they've started a long time ago, and I can't finish it for him."
Right.
And it was like, wow, that's right.
Brings up another way to deal with disparity of force.
Disparity of force.
Yes. I came out of the bar once, locked everything up, and 3 guys come out from hidden behind pickup trucks.
Fair enough disparity of force.
Yeah, disparity of force. Well, I don't care. It's not the movies.
Yeah.
You got 3 guys on you, you're going to be seriously hurt, killed, or it's going to be tough. I'm not saying you can't defeat multiple opponents. I will frankly say I have. But use such a level of force that I had to...
Yeah, the dice are loaded.
I had to go to the district attorney wanted to speak with me. And for months he threatened to send me to prison forever. And then when the arraignment came and the judge said, "The state, ready to proceed? Ready to proceed?" He said, "State does not wish to proceed at this time, Your Honor. Case dismissed." The DA is not your friend. He's not concerned with your guilt or innocence. That's not his job. His only job is to convict you. If he thinks he can, he will intimidate you and try to get a plea bargain right up to the 11th hour.
I have experienced this.
Yes. Okay, disparity of force. The 3 guys come out. Your karate instructor did the same thing. It's called the Crazy Man Act.
Yeah.
I put my hands up like this, ran to the lead guy, and I said, "Jesus loves you, Jesus loves you. He doesn't want you to burn in hell. He doesn't want you to burn in hell. The lake of fire, you don't want it," and all this, And they backed off a little bit. It also gave them the honorable exit. This guy's crazy. Let's leave him the fuck alone.
Yeah, we don't do crazy.
But we don't do crazy. The Apache Indians, when they attacked a group of settlers, if one of them that was crazy, they'd leave him alone.
Really?
He felt he was touched by the spirits, and if they harmed him, they would perhaps engage the wrath of those spirits.
And who wants to bring that home?
Right, exactly.
Beautiful.
Violence is almost a no-win situation. You can avoid it most of the time, almost all the time. But once it's come to the point that you cannot, you generally can't. Most people cannot afford anything less than 110%.
Yeah. I came upon you, and gosh darn it, I have forgotten that DVD that I got. It was VHS at one time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. What was the name of that one?
Yeah, the one you're talking about is Knockout Blows in the Bouncer Tray.
Yeah, Knockout Blows. That I got to tell you, folks, if you think you want to be a bouncer,
bad idea.
But the other thing is that that's just a doggone good DVD on what violence, the precursors of violence look like. You talk mostly about the knockouts, pushing the head to the side, hitting the vague, all this
artery,
yeah. And but you also break down the different kinds of knockouts. But the thing that I think is really brilliant in it is it has the precursors to violence in the scenarios.
Yes.
And really, really simple stuff, little scenarios. And that should not be underrated. I mean, you had to do those to get to the point where you were demonstrating the techniques, but I thought they were brilliantly done in that they convey very succinctly and very adroitly the precursor of that dance that
Yes.
leads to that place.
Right. Martial arts is concerned with technique, but by the time it gets to physical technique, you're already in a very uncontrolled situation.
Yeah.
And the human predator is pretty easy to spot because he identifies himself. What are you looking at? Or that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So if you handle him correctly, don't disrespect him, don't show any fear, be assertive as required in proportion to how hard he's coming on. Most times he'll just go and pick somebody else, and 10 minutes later he'll be pounding somebody else in the bar stool.
What's the other book you have? The Bar Room?
Well, there's Real Fighting, Adrenal Stress Conditioning Through Scenario-Based Training.
Yeah.
Well, actually, my best-selling book is not a self-defense book at all.
Yeah?
It's Freedom from Fear, Taking Back Control of Your Life and Dissolving Depression.
Okay, we are going to go down this road, all right, because I think this is really significant. Now, where does that book come from?
Well, there are two ways to rule a society, through hope or through fear.
Sure, very Machiavellian.
That's about all there is, either.
Yeah.
Our society is ruled primarily through hope. We hope the next president will do a better job. We hope the economy will improve, et cetera, et cetera. Nazi Germany was ruled by fear. Saddam's country is ruled by fear.
Sure,
well,
sure.
Therefore, the people in those, it's the same with ruling yourself. You can either allow yourself to be principally ruled by hope, rational hope, or by fear. And most people allow too much of their life to be ruled by the fear of what might happen.
Now, you said something there that was really good. You said rational hope.
Rational hope.
No, we're not talking about Pollyanna sunshine stuff.
No, we're not talking about that.
Because I think there's a really big distinction there, and you made that distinction, but you kind of popped past it, and I wanted to make sure that the listeners caught it. But go ahead where you were going.
Well, everything we do, what's the objective? You say, what do you want in life? You ask that to someone. Some people say, well, I want to be happy. Well, that's as close to an honest response as you're getting. Some people be more honest. I want power. I want wealth. But when you really get down to it, people only want this thing or that thing because they think it will make them happy.
Okay.
It's all there's to it. They want this job, or they want this money, or they want this motorcycle, or this car, or this woman, or this man, because they think it'll make them happy. But the real objective is to be happy. Well, the essence of that is being happy with yourself. Because if you're not happy with yourself first, it's never really going to work. So everything flows from our own personal self-image of ourselves. You see?
And you break that down into hope and fear internally. Yes.
Now, what is not so easily seen is how fear responses can be conditioned into us. Let me give you an example of a physical response that most people will relate to that is conditioned into you and bypasses the self-aware mind. If you're driving your car and somebody makes a left turn in front of you, your right foot stomps on that brake automatically. You don't think about it. You've done it before. Get your self-aware mind.
Right.
That has been conditioned into you by your previous driving behavior.
Correct.
Now, how did it get conditioned into you so well and so automatically that now a ball rolls across the street in front of you, boom, you hit the brakes immediately.
Repetition.
You don't have to wait to see a kid.
Yeah.
You learned it under adrenal stress.
I learned it okay now. So what you're telling me is that if I learn under adrenal stress, it becomes imprinted more quickly.
Yes, and physiologically it's stored in a different neural net and physical location of the body.
Get out. No, that's crazy, Tom.
Absolutely true.
Yeah, that's insane. Tell me more about that.
It's the basis of all post-traumatic stress disorder.
Sure, okay.
We could get into this on a physiological level. I can even get down to it on a biochemical level. But
well, let me say this. So you're saying that that stomping on the brake is certainly not in the frontal cortex.
No. It's down there by the amygdala.
Okay. So we're getting down by the lizard.
Yes, exactly. That's why the Chinese call it the lizard brain.
Yeah.
The ancient Chinese. But modern science this is well developed.
Yeah.
Adrenal memories are more durable, lasting, and permanent, and they have higher fidelity. This is the basis of all post-traumatic stress disorder, because when you step on the brake, now you see that's what's conditioned into you. You don't have to think about hit the brake. Your body just does it.
Yeah.
Okay? Well, there's other behaviors we have that we do that have been conditioned into us through adrenal stress that we often do not recognize.
Okay.
I'll give you a much other end of the spectrum example. Let's say a woman is sensitive to people thinking she can't drive or follow directions or a map.
Sure.
And there's 4 people in the car, 2 couples. She's driving, and she's driving them to a new restaurant. One guy says, "We're almost there, Martha. This is 5th Street, and it's down there on 7th." And she snaps back, "I know where it is. I read the map." She's not thinking that she's being rude or snappy. She has been conditioned. Previously, when somebody said, "You can't read a map with shit," and it happened once or twice, but she's not aware of that. It's down on the amygdala adrenal level. So now when anybody says something about that, it triggers a response. Now, this is a very low-level thing. Let me give you one that's perhaps easier.
Yeah, no, but because you're making me really think here for a little bit, because when you did judo, you got out there, you competed.
Sure.
I always learned more from competition and a loss than I ever learned from a win or from randori.
Sure, because in a loss, you see how you went wrong. You see what you need to correct. When you go out there and boom, get the ippon right away, there's not as much content.
It wasn't as satisfying to me. It wasn't.
Well, my overall point here is,
but
once you know how the adrenal mind works,
yeah,
you can be more alert to what is being conditioned into you that operates without your self-aware thinking, like that brake pedal push.
Sure.
Even thoughts, thinking patterns can become like that.
Which brings us to what you're doing at the RMCAT.
Yes. Here, it's scenario-based training. The guy comes out in a armored suit. Well, it's not always an armored suit. The armored suit allows full contact striking to the head and groin. That's the real beauty of it. But it's the scenario itself that's the thing. The guy comes out, and just like in real, "Hey, what the fuck you looking at?" "Hey, I'm not looking at anything. You're calling me nothing." And all this
Yeah,
stuff.
right.
And then he either de-escalates the guy using the rules and methods we teach, or the guy attacks and he has to go 110% to fight mode.
Let me ask you this. When I see the the obscenities and the closing of the space
right.
and all of this kind of stuff, how do you make sure that you're getting adequate adrenaline on the subject with that?
That's not a challenge in the least.
Really?
No. It's like if I cut you, you bleed. If I make the right body posture, the volume, the eyes, everything, we're going
to get it.
Yeah, it's not being evaluated up here, self-aware.
And up in your prefrontal cortex.
You'll flush, your body will flush with adrenaline. And, I mean, some people will have the adrenal reaction stronger than others, but certainly 3/4 of them will experience in their first or second or third scenario audio exclusion. Their hearing shuts. Their hearing shuts off. But now some of them, the program moves in little stages. The real triumph is when the audio exclusion goes to tachypsyche. Audio exclusion. Okay, let me say something. Let's say you're watching your kid on the jungle gym. You see he's going to fall. He starts to fall. He seems to be falling in slow motion. You're in a car pulls in front of you. You're not driving. Things seem to go in slow motion.
Right.
There seems plenty of time for the guy to hit the brake. While those things are going in slow motion, you generally do not notice that your hearing is shut off. You're not hearing anything. But you aren't. The reason things are moving in slow motion is because the processing power that's used for the auditory processing has now been switched to the visual cortex.
So it's all triage inside
so you
your
can
brain.
see faster.
Yeah.
So when you see faster, things seem to be moving in slow motion. Now,
when you see, okay, I got it. I'm with you.
So, like when I was a bouncer, I experienced this. After a lot of times people pulling weapons on me, all these little subliminal cues before they did it, before they actually got the weapon out, my subconscious mind had registered, and a guy would be talking to you, "You motherfucker!" Oh, yeah.
Really, it would go down. It would go down that slow.
Yes, and
wow.
I wouldn't actually hear him very well, but I would hear it like a record on low volume playing slow while he looked like he was moving underwater. And then there was plenty of times to get things done. I guess I can promote another book, huh?
Yeah, please do.
Okay, the Musashi's Book of Five Rings. I've done a translation of this. More than a translation, an explanation of what he is saying. Okay. Musashi was the 15th century samurai, killed 60-odd guys in individual duels, others in battles. But the others, most of them were duels where people showed their lineage and everything else.
Yeah.
He wrote a book of five rings, and most people find it completely incomprehensible, and so did I when I was 12 or 13 years old. Well, now I'm 61. And really, it's perfectly clear to me now.
You know, one of the greatest pieces in that entire book for me is this. There is a difference between stickiness and entanglement. Know the difference.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Here's my favorite in the thing. Think neither of victory nor of yourself, but only of cutting and killing your enemy. That sounds like samurai machismo, but what he's really saying is, better explained in the converse. If you are thinking of victory or of yourself, you will have difficulty cutting and killing your enemy. What he's saying is, that's all the self-aware mind. But when it gets real and you're facing another guy with a razor-sharp sword, it is not that self-aware mind where things like victory and yourself exist. It is...
Now, the title of this book is called what?
Musashi's Book of Five Rings, explained in plain English.
And when is that available?
It should be out in the next 6 weeks, back from the printers. At this little soiree, I have PDFs on it on a CD.
Oh.
Maybe I'll give you one. You can review it.
Maybe I'll do that in a heartbeat.
Okay.
Because I'm a big fan of not necessarily Musashi the man, but I'm a big fan of the brilliance in which he put that down.
Systems level thinker before systems level analysis developed as a science.
As a whole protocol. Yeah.
And you look at his book is broken up in water, fire, etc. Actually, he's saying the same thing in every book, just in a different way, so another person might get it.
Sure, but I have to admit that when I read the void section at 21, it was like, what? No clue. I mean, not like I had a clue about the rest of it, but that one, seriously not.
Yes, yes, that was more challenging in a way, but it's the ultimate thing that ties everything else together. The metaphors he uses is, the bowl is made of wood, but its only value is the hollow spot, the space is missing.
Yeah.
Another thing he said in there, do not try to move too fast. There's plenty of time to get things done. Well, I experienced that when the people started going slow motion. Mm-hmm. Oh, I'll kick your fucking ass, you. Then their hand comes up and they've got a bottle or whatever.
Sure.
That's the same. I think that's what he's talking about. Now, I have to acknowledge this is my own interpretation, but it certainly fits my experience. It certainly fits. But the reader will have to make their own determination.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm in. I'm in.
A lot of people think that Musashi wasn't afraid because he didn't care if he lived or died. No, I don't buy that. He wasn't afraid because he knew fear would not serve him.
That is a profound difference. Yeah. So if somebody wanted to come to the Rocky Mountain,
they would go
how would they do it?
www.rmcat.com.
And we'll be able to find all the information we need there.
Yes, and what the class schedules and the applications. The training goes over a weekend.
Uh-huh.
But I can tell you, most people, even advanced black belts, acknowledge they learn more about true self-defense and dealing with hostile people than he did in years at karate.
Oh, yeah.
It's not technique-oriented. We only teach 5 techniques.
Uh-huh.
You know. We also teach firearms, of course.
Yeah.
In the same scenario-based method. You can take the 2 courses, the hand-to-hand fighting and the firearms course back-to-back.
So you got a range?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We have the RMCAT training complex is on 40 acres in the Rocky Mountains. It's at 8,500 feet. I have best part of $1 million invested in the facility. It's where I also live.
Yeah.
You know. And there's usually 6 to 8 classes, 6 or 8 weekends a year, mostly in the summer.
Yeah, yeah. I can't imagine, having seen it, the samples of it, read your work, and now talked with you, that people don't enter into the process one way and come out a different way.
They definitely do. They definitely do, because it's, to me, self-defense training, when it is truly authentic, is the most powerful form of self-improvement and self-actualization. Whenever you transcend a fear, like Obi-Wan Kenobi said, you take a first step into a larger world. You realize, I was afraid of this and I overcome it. Then you can look back and say, it was fear is why I failed in this other thing in the past.
Yeah.
And then you say, fear doesn't serve me. Rational fear serves me. Irrational fear does not. Rational fear is look both ways before you pull out in traffic.
Rational hope, irrational hope.
Right.
Rational fear, irrational fear.
Exactly.
I would argue today that the 6 o'clock news is chock full of irrational fear.
Yes, because it sells.
Yeah. So what happens is, now I got rid of my TV about 7 years ago or something like that.
You haven't missed a thing.
Not a damn thing.
There's a few nature shows.
Well, I'll tell you what, I do miss college football.
Oh, I never had much interest in it.
Okay, but that's my thing.
Yeah.
I have to tell you that my attitude began to change when I wasn't following the news. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not saying I'm a Luddite. I'm not saying I'm living in a cave somewhere.
I thought that was Luddite.
I pronounce it Luddite. But the point is that I'm aware of what's going on. I know that this is happening in the news. I know that and everything. But I don't really make a great effort to be engaged in it. It's like three people drown on Angle Lake this weekend. What else do I need to know?
Right, exactly. Let's say this, I've forgotten what the name is, but the big trial over the child being murdered.
Sure, yeah.
Now, see, it's one thing to report that. It's another thing to sensationalize it, to package it and sell it over and over and over. It's the news, if handled responsibly, serves a social purpose. Parents can say, damn, I'm not going to let that happen to my kid. I'm not going to let my kid be affected this way. Or, gosh, this person's out there. I better be alert. That's sufficient. But what they do, of course, is it's a commercial enterprise. They have to draw it out over 6 weeks.
But they have melded rational fear with irrational fear, and you can't tell the difference anymore, Peyton.
Well,
you can. I think I can.
Yeah.
But there's a whole bunch of people out there that really, I don't think, because they have not been raised. I'm 50. You're 61.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Have not been raised outside of a news cycle, if you know what I mean. It's just omnipresent.
Well, consider this. I follow things to some extent. There's a whole group of people who believe the world will come to an end in 2012.
Yeah.
There's another group of people who believe the entire economy is going to crash and we'll be back into Stone Age type existence, no fuel.
Bartering and gold.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, obviously there's an attraction to that, isn't there?
Sure.
Otherwise people would not be attracted to it.
Right.
There's a person who has a website about how to find your retreat and all in your community. To me, it's logically full of holes, but he has some 450,000 people go to that. Okay. People like horror movies too, don't they? They like to be scared.
Yeah, but it's a different genre.
Indeed,
these days.
It is.
I like monsters.
Yeah, the old monsters. Yeah.
Sure, I love the monsters.
Well, of course, the greatest monster is the human monster.
Yeah.
Who's the guy?
Well, that's the thing.
The cannibal, Hannibal Lecter. He's much more scary.
Well, let me tell you something. Frankenstein is not called Frankenstein's monster. It's called Frankenstein.
Yes.
Who was the real in the original Mary Shelley not the Boris Karloff stuff, which was delightful, don't get me wrong.
Right.
But in the original Mary Shelley, who was really the monster? Was it Frankenstein for creating the monster? Or was it the monster himself?
Right. That's
So
then what does it mean to be human, etc.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's, the Star Trek made its whole thing off that.
Sure.
The original Star Trek divided man into his three basic types: the logical Spock, the humanistic McCoy, and the guy who can put them together and coordinate and lead, Kirk.
And shoot first and ask questions later. Yeah.
Shoot from the hip.
Yeah, that was a 10-gallon hat space cowboy right there.
Wagon train in space.
Yeah, it was.
And brilliantly done, the chemistry between the three people.
Oh, well, it's sustained, of course.
Exactly.
So anyway, back to, the irrational fear. Do you find people having a difficult time separating rational from irrational?
Well, the individual has to do it, and he has to have confidence on self-image. Let me give you an example. The same behavior could be rational fear on one person's side and irrational on the others. For example, let's say a person wants to go to a Bruce Springsteen concert, but he's afraid to go because he thinks, boy, there'll be 10,000 people here, I'll probably catch some airborne disease. Or he thinks, I just read that thing where there was a concert and people were trampled to death. Things that could bad could happen at a concert. Or I just get nervous with that many people pressing all around me. Okay. Now, you see, that might be a rational fear or an irrational fear. You see? You see what I mean?
Yeah.
There's some of them. It depends on that individual. For example, we are all the product of our experience. If he had previously gone to a concert, almost got deathly ill from some disease that fortunately was cured and was traced back to the concert, well, is that an irrational fear? No, that's learning. Any change in behavior that results from experience. Learning. So it's not always black and white and immediately clear what's a rational fear and what's an irrational one. But your compass has to be your own strong personal self-image. You must know who you are. And there you have it. Then it becomes fairly easy to determine whether it's a rational or irrational fear. And sometimes you may even choose to give in to an irrational fear.
I did when I cleared security to fly here.
Aha, very good. Yeah. See that? Because that served you, you see?
Well, no, I decided that I was standing there looking at, the full body scanner, and they're picking people out and throwing them through the full body scanner, and I'm kind of like, I don't know if I want to do that or not. And I was looking at it, and I was really measuring it this way. I got 90 minutes before my flight. This is the last stage I got to make before I'm in the concourse. I'm going to have time to cool my heels. I may decide to go for the full body search instead of going through the scanner. And then the question to myself was, why do you want to do that? And the answer was, I think I want to know what their protocols are on that full body search.
Right.
I'm okay. If somebody wants to, feel me up, whatever. That's not gonna make my day, or it's not gonna ruin my day.
Right.
But I was really kind of interested in the protocols that they were going to go through in that.
You wanted the information.
I wanted the information.
And the only way to get the information was to have the experience.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, see, that was a rational decision. You had something to gain, and you decided it was worth what little risk there was. That was a rational decision.
Yeah, and my determination was there's really no risk because I'm going to make my flight, and I really don't care if somebody wants to grab my butt.
Yeah, exactly.
So there was no risk.
Yes. Well,
but you're right. That was the process I went through.
It's the risk we imagine in our minds that is important, not the real risk.
And the risk that's imagined, is that irrational?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you looked at it rationally. Okay, not excited about it. I wish I didn't have to go through this, but I'll go through it because I'll learn information I want. And, so the guy grabs my butt, so what? I'll live through that.
Yeah.
You see?
Yeah.
You didn't introduce any imaginary irrational fears, They'll see this, they'll throw that. I'll say the wrong thing, they'll throw me in jail.
I wasn't having Midnight Express vision.
Yeah. Midnight Express, yes.
Oh, that movie, man! I'll tell you, that's something else. All right, Peyton, this has been absolutely nutrient dense.
Nutrient dense.
Nutrient
I like that.
dense. I have to tell you that I find your work absolutely brilliant, and I don't say that to a lot of people. I really, really believe in what you're doing. When I talked to Mark, he says you're coming down. I asked him. I said, "Is Peyton going to be there?" Because I really wanted to meet you. Because
I'm glad we got together.
Well, yeah, I am too. But the other thing is that sometimes when you meet people, their work is better than they are. But that is not the case here, my friend. You have not disappointed in the least. This has been very deep, very good, very profound, and full of an enormous amount of information. And I would recommend to anybody that has any kind of question regarding this to contact you and find out more, because I think the more they find out, the more they're going to want to learn what you have to teach. So where does somebody get a hold of you?
RMCAT.com. You can also enter my name, Peyton Quinn, in any search engine. You'll come up with a lot of my books.
Name a few of those for us.
Bouncer's Guide to Barroom Brawling.
That's the book. That thing is the bomb.
Yeah. Real Fighting, Adrenal Stress Conditioning through Scenario-Based Training. Both of them available from Paladin Press or Amazon or wherever. But Paladin Press in Boulder, Colorado. Then in my self-help series.
Yeah. Which, clearly good stuff.
Freedom from Fear, Taking Back Control of Your Life and Dissolving Depression. And my other book, The Science and Art of Love and Romance, A Strategy for Success, A Program for Healing.
Right on.
Yeah, it's the biochemistry flows through all of it, but it's written in language that you don't have to have any knowledge of biochemistry.
Sure. All right. We're going to go ahead and we're going to end this, but I want you to leave everybody. This is your chance, you get to leave them with one thought that's going to make the difference in their lives.
First, believe in yourself. If you don't, it's not likely anybody else will. And I'd even go so far as to say, accept and love yourself, warts and all. If you can't do that, who the hell else is going to love you? And be nice to people. It doesn't cost anything, and it opens more doors. Might even keep you alive. Peace be with you all.
Hey, beautiful. Thanks so much, Peyton. Everybody, thanks so much for listening. Be well.
Nice work.
Hi, this is Chris Wilder from Marshall Secrets. Marshall Secrets is free, but it's not costless. So tell your friends about Marshall Secrets. Your good words are the best endorsement we can have. Also, if you like what you hear, buy one of our books, buy one of our DVDs. We think they're pretty good, and we think you'll find value in them too. As always, we appreciate you listening and your support. You can find us pretty quickly by just going to Amazon.com, typing in Lawrence Kane or Chris Wilder, and you can find all of our books and DVDs there. Thanks for listening, and be well.